You can do good and make profits at the same time.
This is Arif Naqvi, friend of billionaires, champion of the poor, an advocate of capitalist solutions to alleviate poverty in emerging markets.
To do good does not necessarily mean to compromise returns or to compromise other principles.
His Dubai-based private equity firm Abraaj attracted billions of dollars from global investors. But in June it collapsed, and now it is the world's biggest insolvent private equity firm. Unbeknown to most investors, $660 million of their dollars were moved by Abraaj into its own bank accounts, according to company and investor documents and people familiar with the situation. The documents show that more than $200 million went from Abraaj to Mr. Naqvi and people close to him, including a company run by his sons and another company run by his former assistant. The sons declined to comment. Mr. Naqvi denies wrongdoing, saying the transfers were appropriate. He preached that investing in hospitals, food makers and other companies in emerging markets was beneficial to society.
How do you get private money to come in and make a difference?
In practice, according to some investors, Abraaj used their funds for unauthorized purposes. Take healthcare. Naqvi raised $1 billion for a fund to build hospitals in developing countries. He said his aim was to give access to low-cost healthcare.
But the reality is we're profitable already. When you're operating 24 hospitals and you're catering to the middle classes, let me tell you, the floodgates of capital will open because everyone wants to make a profit, and that's how it'll happen.
But an investigation commissioned by Abraaj investors earlier this year alleged that Mr. Naqvi misappropriated hundreds of millions of dollars from the healthcare fund. Naqvi sat on the board of Air Arabia, a Middle Eastern airline. He arranged a loan from the airline and used it to cover up money missing from the fund, according to the investigation. When investors asked for
an explanation of the business purpose of the circular transfers of money to Air Arabia,
lawyers for investors say Abraaj never gave a satisfactory answer. They wrote,
the purpose of these transfers was to conceal the fact that Abraaj had misappropriated their funds.
Mr. Naqvi said money from the healthcare fund was used by Abraaj on a temporary basis for general corporate purposes and was always available to the healthcare fund on a demand deposit basis. He denied that any loans from Air Arabia were made to conceal money missing from the fund. Air Arabia said it invested in Abraaj and is cooperating with the company's liquidators. For years, Naqvi argued that the Western assessment of emerging markets as risky was unfair.
Dare I say it cheekily, that when risk came into the global financial system and into all our lives, it came from right here in New York City in 2008 with the Lehman Brothers crash.
He challenged what he described as myths about doing business in emerging markets.
We invested in a utility company in Karachi in Pakistan 8 years ago. It is a country not known for transparency. It is a country where in government you are often asked for either favors or money or whatever. We went in and we did everything by the book. We avoided every single point where you would have had to come into contact with government.
But behind the scenes, Naqvi tried to secure the cooperation of then Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and his brother on the sale of utility company K Electric, according to company emails and people familiar with the situation. He hosted the Prime Minister at a World Economic Forum dinner in Switzerland in 2017.
It gives me great pleasure to ask the Prime Minister of Pakistan to address you now.
In one email confirmed by people familiar with the situation, Naqvi asks an Abraaj partner to draw up a $20 million contract for an advisor close to the Prime Minister and his brother.
Keep it generic. This document is explosive in the wrong hands.
In another email, the Abraaj partner wrote that the advisor said the brothers would give instructions on
how this money should be distributed, e.g. a portion to charity or a portion to the election fund kitty.
It also explains how the Prime Minister's brother would endorse the sale. Mr. Naqvi denies being part of any conversation that involved a payment to anyone in political office to facilitate the sale of K Electric. He said the contract was part of a lengthy discussion about the advisor's work for Abraaj. He said he called it explosive because the planned sale of K Electric was confidential at the time. A lawyer for the Sharif family said the brothers deny any discussions took place with Mr. Malik as described in the emails.
We need to be transparent. We need to be governance driven.
In May 2017, one of Naqvi's aides warned him,
I am under tremendous pressure re Abraaj cash. There is a serious cash crunch. I don't have the funds to pay essential payments like salaries.
This was partly in response to Naqvi asking for Abraaj money to be sent to The Modist, an online fashion company started by his former assistant, Gislan Ganez.
Send $300,000 to the Modist account. Need the cash tomorrow.
His aide responded,
I have transferred funds as per your instructions.
Mr. Naqvi and a Modist representative said that he personally invested in the company. In a statement provided to the Journal, Mr. Naqvi said, I have neither misused nor misappropriated any Abraaj funds. There was nothing untoward about my requests for transfers of Abraaj Group funds to me or my family or for my personal investments or obligations. Mr. Naqvi said all drawdowns were properly recorded and accounted for as his personal liability to the company.
What you will realize is that wealth, success, being famous, these are transient things. What people will remember is who you are, how you dealt with them, the empathy you had, the humility you show, and the route that you followed in helping people understand where you come from.